Welcome to Echo Mind. Let me ask you something from the heart. Have you ever sat quietly in your kitchen, maybe with a warm cup of coffee, and just felt whole, peaceful, and content with the silence around you? If that sounds familiar, you're not just comfortable being alone. You may actually be thriving in it. You're also not the only one. Today, we will discuss 5 types of women who are happiest living alone. These are not lonely women, but strong, wise, and grounded individuals who have reached a point in life where they no longer need to explain themselves, compromise their space, or wait for others to validate their choices. Here at Echo Mind, we believe that the richest conversations are the ones we have with ourselves. Our goal is to explore the inner worlds that make us who we are, to find wisdom in quiet moments, and to honor the unique paths we forge. The women we're talking about today are masters of this inner work. Their solitude is not an escape from the world, but a deep, meaningful engagement with their own truths. Whether you chose solitude after long marriage, have always enjoyed your own company, or are just realizing how rich life can be when lived on your own terms, this message is for you. We will explore 5 unique types of women, each with her own stories, strengths, and sense of peace. By the end, I think you'll see yourself in at least one, and maybe all 5, of them. If you've ever felt different because you enjoy your own space, rhythm, and life, I want you to know you are not different. You are wise and exactly where you are meant to be. 1. The Justice Woman, the Decider. Let's begin with the first type of woman who not only is content, but is absolutely thriving living alone. I call her the Justice Woman. The name might sound dramatic, but her story might feel a lot like your own. The Justice Woman is clear, confident, and most of all, decisive. This is a woman who has spent a lifetime learning to trust her own judgment. She doesn't hesitate, whether she is choosing what to cook for dinner or deciding to move across the country. She knows how to weigh the facts, listen to her gut, and move forward with clarity. What sets her apart is that she doesn't feel the need to consult someone else before she acts. For her, independence is a source of peace. She's not rude or cold. In fact, she might be one of the warmest, most generous people you know. However, she is also deeply in touch with what she wants and doesn't like having to negotiate her needs with someone who might not understand them. This clarity wasn't born overnight. It was forged through years of making tough choices, of seeing the consequences of others' indecision, and of learning that her own inner voice was the most reliable guide. Her decision-making process is a quiet, powerful ritual. She doesn't need a committee to validate her. She only needs her own conviction. Let me tell you about Eleanor, a 73-year-old former high school principal. After retiring, she moved from New York to Charleston all by herself. When I asked her why, she said, "I just needed more sun in my life, in every sense of the word." She told me, "I spent 40 years making decisions for schools, students, and my family. Now I get to make decisions for me, and only me." There was a quiet, earned confidence in her voice, not defiance or bitterness. She had fulfilled her duties, and now it was her time to be the master of her own destiny. For women like Eleanor, even the loving opinions of friends or family can start to feel like interference. They don't want to debate their vacation plans, how they spend their savings, or whether they should renovate the guest room. They have already done the thinking, weighed the pros and cons, and had the conversation with themselves. That is enough. Some of these women, like Eleanor, are fast thinkers. Others are slow processors who mull things over quietly and privately. But whether they make their decisions in a flash or after a long walk alone, they do not need to ask for anyone's blessing. This isn't stubbornness. It's sovereignty. They have earned the right to be the sole author of their own lives. If you are nodding along right now, you just might be a Justice Woman, too. You don't resist partnership out of fear or past pain. You simply find your fullest self in solitude. You lead your own life on your own terms, and that is not just admirable, it is beautiful. So, here's to you, dear Justice Women out there, the deciders and navigators, the quiet captains of your own ship. Your clarity is sacred, and your ability to trust your own inner compass is your freedom. 2. The High Priestess, the inner artist. Now let's talk about the second kind of woman who flourishes in solitude, the High Priestess. She is not guided by external noise. Her strength comes not from who she is around, but from what she builds within herself. She is quiet, not because she has nothing to say, but because she is always listening to the whispers of her heart, the rhythm of her thoughts, and the sacred stillness that many overlook. The High Priestess is the woman who finds joy in the quiet corners of life. She's not trying to be left alone. She simply knows that her soul comes alive when she is. She reads, writes, paints, and meditates. She doesn't need constant conversation, background noise, or anyone else's presence to feel fulfilled. In fact, too much interruption can make her feel fragmented, pulled away from her own center. Her home is her sanctuary, a physical manifestation of her inner world. She curates it with intention, filling it with objects that hold meaning and stories. The space itself is a collaborator in her creative process, a place where her imagination can roam free and her spirit can find its true expression. She has discovered that the deepest fulfillment comes not from external stimulation, but from the rich, complex universe she carries within. I'd like to tell you about Sarah, who is 68 and a retired music teacher. She lives in a cozy, light-filled home near a small lake in Vermont. Most mornings, she lights a candle, makes herself a cup of strong black tea, and writes in her journal for an hour before the world really begins. Her home is full of soft music, books stacked by the fireplace, and little objects that tell her story. A seashell from the first beach she visited alone, an old teacup from her grandmother, and a painting she started during a winter storm and never finished because, in her words, it already says what I needed it to. Sarah told me, "When I was younger, I thought being alone meant I wasn't wanted. Now, being alone means I have room to want what I truly love." That shift from isolation to intention is the essence of the High Priestess. Many women in this category are creative types: artists, writers, knitters, gardeners, dreamers. But creativity here doesn't have to mean producing something. It can mean designing your day around what nourishes you. It is the freedom to follow your curiosity, to nap when you're tired, and to stand in the kitchen humming a tune no one else knows. It is the sacred art of living from the inside out. There's also another truth about the High Priestess: her evolving relationship with intimacy. For some women, especially as they grow older, the need for sexual connection fades. For some, like Sarah, that comes as a relief, not a loss. She shared with me, menopause was like a soft closing door. I used to wonder if I should feel sad about that. But honestly, what I felt was calm, like I had more space in my mind and heart for other kinds of joy. This doesn't mean that High Priestess women are cold or withdrawn. Quite the opposite. They often have a deep, rich well of love for animals, nature, beauty, and their community. But they don't seek emotional fulfillment through traditional relationships anymore. They may have had vibrant love lives in the past, or they may have never felt that kind of pull, but where they are now is a place of peace. Peace is no small thing. If you are someone who feels most at home when the world is quiet, if you've ever caught yourself smiling while watering your plants or writing out your thoughts in a notebook, or simply sitting in the sunlight listening to bird song, you might just be a High Priestess too. Your joy doesn't need applause. Your love doesn't need proving. You are whole because you honor who you are without apology. So, here's to you, the High Priestess, the women who create sacred space with nothing more than intention, who speak to themselves with kindness and to the world with clarity. You don't just survive solitude. You paint it in color and wrap it in warmth. That, dear one, is a gift only you can give. 3. The nurturer, the reclaimed caregiver. Now, let's talk about the third kind of woman who shines brightly in her own company, the nurturer. Chances are you met her, or maybe you are her. She's the one who always remembered birthdays, who made everyone's plate before sitting down herself, and who stayed up late helping a child with homework or comforting a friend through a heartbreak. Her heart is stitched with generosity. For decades, her life may have revolved around the needs of others. But something beautiful happens as time goes on. The nurturer, after giving so much of herself to everyone else, begins to turn that care inward. It doesn't happen all at once. There might be guilt at first for resting, for saying no, for prioritizing peace over obligation. But slowly, something shifts. She realizes that she's still a caregiver, only now the person she's taking care of is herself. This is a profound and often difficult transition. She has to unlearn the belief that her value is tied to what she does for others. This journey from selfless giving to self-compassion is a quiet but powerful act of rebellion. She learns to sit with her own needs, to listen to her own body and heart, and to treat herself with the same tenderness she has always shown to the world. Let me tell you about a woman named Brenda. Brenda is 71, a retired nurse, and a mother of 3. For most of her life, she was a rock everyone leaned on. She cooked every meal, remembered every appointment, and made sure her home was a place where people felt safe. But after her children grew up and moved away, and her husband passed after a long illness, Brenda found herself surrounded by silence and unsure what to do with it. At first, she said the quiet felt unbearable. "I didn't know who I was if I wasn't needed," she told me. "It was like the phone stopped ringing, and so did my purpose." But over time, she began to discover something unexpected. She enjoyed cooking just for herself. She started buying flowers for her own kitchen table. She took long walks and started journaling about things she'd always wanted to do, but never made time for. "Now," she said, smiling gently, "I make myself a full breakfast every morning, just like I used to for my family. Only this time, it's for me because I matter too." That's the power of the nurturer when she reclaims her care. It's easy for women like Brenda to be overlooked. Society tends to reward youth and ambition, not quiet strength and compassion. But make no mistake, these women hold entire families and communities together, often without thanks or recognition. When they begin to recognize their own worth, not through what they give to others, but through the simple act of loving themselves, it is a quiet revolution. The nurturer doesn't stop loving others. That would go against her nature, but she starts setting boundaries. She learns that saying no doesn't make her mean. It makes her whole. She discovers that rest is not laziness, and that solitude is not selfishness. She stops pouring from an empty cup and starts filling her own. This woman might find joy in the smallest acts, planting herbs on her windowsill, knitting herself a soft scarf, or reading late into the night without feeling guilty. She might light a candle not because company is coming, but because she deserves a beautiful space to breathe and be. She learns to savor the little rituals: a walk after dinner, tea in a real china cup, music from her youth playing softly in the background. If you're a nurturer, you've already mastered the art of care. But now the question is, can you direct some of that tenderness toward the woman in the mirror? Because you are just as worthy of love as anyone you've ever looked after. When you begin to show up for yourself with the same grace and loyalty you've shown others, that's when life alone stops feeling empty and starts feeling full. So, here's to the nurturer, to the women who have given their hearts to others and are now finally giving that same love back to themselves. You're not selfish. You're not forgotten. You're simply stepping into a season of restoration, one where you get to be the one held, honored, and healed. And you deserve every second of it. For the Queen of Pentacles, the self-made woman. Now we arrive at the fourth kind of woman, who lives, well, not just in solitude, but in sovereignty. I call her the Queen of Pentacles. She is calm, steady, and deeply rooted in the life she has built with her own 2 hands. This is a woman who knows the value of a dollar because she earned every one of them. And just as importantly, she knows the value of her time, her space, and her freedom. The Queen of Pentacles is not dependent. She may have once shared a life, a bank account, or a home, or perhaps she never did. Either way, what matters now is that she knows how to take care of herself emotionally, spiritually, and financially. She is not afraid of hard work, and she is not afraid of being alone. In fact, the two often go hand in hand. Let me introduce you to Linda. Linda is 67, and after a 30-year career in real estate, she now lives in a sunlit home in Washington filled with art and memories. She spent decades building her business from scratch, pounding the pavement, making cold calls, and negotiating with confidence in a world that wasn't always kind to women with ambition. But she kept going. She raised 2 kids on her own. She paid off her house. And when she finally retired, she didn't look for someone to spend her time with. She looked for how to spend it well. Linda told me something I've never forgotten. She said, "I didn't work this hard just to share my decisions with someone who hasn't lived this journey with me. I'm not opposed to love, but I'm done with compromise. I want to wake up every morning and know that every choice is mine. That, in essence, is the soul of the Queen of Pentacles. This kind of woman might still be working, or she might be retired. But regardless of her income, the key is that she earned what she has. Her security was not handed to her. She didn't inherit it. She created brick by brick, choice by choice, year by year. And because of that, she guards it with care. This doesn't mean she's stingy. Quite the opposite. The Queen of Pentacles is often one of the most generous women you'll meet. She supports causes that matter to her. She donates, she volunteers, and she gives without needing credit. But when it comes to her personal resources, her time, her energy, her home, she is thoughtful. She doesn't let just anyone in, not because she's closed off, but because she knows exactly how long it took to create this piece, and she won't risk it lightly. She's also very clear about what partnership would mean for her and what it must not mean. She won't be someone's retirement plan. She won't merge finances out of obligation. She's not looking to be rescued, and she's certainly not looking to be managed. If anything, the Queen of Pentacles is open to companionship as long as it respects her independence. But if that companionship never comes, she's more than fine. Her life is full of comfort, control, and quiet victories that no one else might notice, but that she celebrates every day. And here's something else that sets her apart. She often has a dream, a clear personal vision for what her resources are for. Maybe it's travel. Maybe it's supporting young women in science, like my friend Christine, who set up a scholarship fund in her hometown. Maybe it's art or gardening, or building a legacy in hospice care or animal rescue. Whatever it is, she didn't just save for security. She saved for meaning. If this sounds like you, if you've worked, planned, sacrificed, and now find joy in the life you built, then you're most certainly a Queen of Pentacles. You deserve to enjoy every dollar you've earned, every choice you made, and every quiet morning that belongs to no one but you. So, here's to you, to the woman who made her own way and is no longer interested in giving up ground. She spent a lifetime claiming your independence isn't a defense. It's a declaration. You don't need anyone to validate your path because you already know it's paved with strength, and it leads exactly where you want to go. 5. The Sage, the Wise Witness. And now we come to the fifth kind of woman who is not just surviving solitude, but is embodying it with grace and wisdom. I call her the Sage. She is the quiet witness, the storyteller, the guide. She doesn't need a full house or constant noise to feel relevant. She carries her value with her in her voice, her presence, and her perspective. The Sage is a woman who has lived deeply. She has likely faced loss, made hard choices, experienced heartache, and walked through seasons that others could never fully understand. She has seen the best and worst of people, including herself. And through it all, she has gathered not just memories but meaning. What sets the Sage apart is that she no longer needs to prove anything. She's not building a resume. She's not chasing approval. She's not competing for love or attention. She knows who she is, and her presence alone is a gift to those around her. She may not speak often, but when she does, people listen. Let me tell you about someone I know. Her name is Vivian. She's 76 and lives in a small cabin in the Appalachian Mountains. She used to be a high school history teacher and spent years leading students through the stories of the past. But in retirement, Vivian has become a different kind of teacher. Once a week, she volunteers at a community center in town, mentoring teenage girls. They ask her about everything: love, family, finding direction. And she never pretends to have all the answers. Instead, she tells them the truth, shaped by a life fully lived. She told me once, they don't need someone perfect. They need someone real. And at this age, I have no interest in being anything but real. That's the energy of the Sage. The Sage may live alone, but she is rarely lonely. That's because she doesn't see solitude as a void. She sees it as a vantage point. It's a place where she can observe the world with clarity. It's where she reflects, writes, remembers, and makes peace with everything that has come before. For her, life is not about what's next. It's about what's true. Many sages become what I call quiet anchors in their communities. They don't demand attention, but they naturally draw people who crave wisdom. They may lead writing groups, offer spiritual counsel, or simply share their stories at book clubs or over coffee. And often, without even meaning to, they become role models not for what they've accomplished, but for how they live. They live slowly and deliberately. They know what matters and what doesn't. They're not interested in trends or drama. They've learned to let go of resentment, to release regret, and to befriend silence. There is a calm in them that others can feel, a peace that wasn't given but earned. While they may no longer need partnership, many sages are still deeply connected to friends, neighbors, and younger generations. But those connections are chosen, not out of fear of being alone, but out of the joy of meaningful exchange. The sage knows that solitude could be a temple, a space to hear herself think, to feel her own pulse, and commune with something greater than herself. For some, it's prayer. For others, poetry. For many, it's just a simple act of remembering who they are and what they've come through. This is the kind of woman who can walk into a room and say only a few words, but leave people changed. She doesn't need a partner to complete her. She doesn't need noise to feel alive. She is already whole, not in spite of her solitude, but because of what it's made possible. If you see yourself in the sage, if you find joy in reflection, purpose in stillness, and fulfillment in quiet contribution, then let me tell you something from the bottom of my heart. You are not forgotten. You are not invisible. You are the lighthouse many of us are steering toward. You remind the rest of us that there's a kind of strength that isn't loud, a kind of beauty that doesn't fade, and a kind of power that comes not from having all the answers, but from knowing which questions really matter. So here's to you, the sage, the witness, the way shower. Your life is not behind you. It is alive in every word you speak, every choice you make, and every gentle, grounded step you take in the world. And in your solitude, you are not diminished. You are refined. You are not alone. You are complete. So, my friend, we've met 5 extraordinary women today. Maybe you saw yourself in one of them. Maybe you saw pieces of yourself in all 5. Whichever woman you are or are becoming, know this. You are not strained for loving your solitude. You're not broken because you're not partnered. You're not lessened for choosing peace over noise. You're full. You are radiant. You're exactly where you're meant to be. There's a quiet kind of power in living alone, especially as a woman, because it means you stepped away from what others told you should want and you've moved toward what actually nourishes you. That takes courage. That takes wisdom. That takes heart. And if no one's told you lately, I'm proud of you. I see your life, your choices, your quiet victories, and they matter. So, if you enjoyed this conversation, I'd love for you to leave a comment below. Tell me which archetype spoke to you the most. Share a bit of your own story if you feel comfortable. This space is for you and for all of us who are learning every day that happiness doesn't come from what the world thinks we need, but from listening deeply to what our soul already knows. Until next time, take gentle care of yourself. This is your life, and you, just as you are in the quiet of your own home, are more than enough. Thank you for spending this time with me.